What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with a latest breaking news in the NFL. It's Carlos Hyde getting traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wow. I did not expect this one to happen, to be honest with you. The trade deadline is approaching in the NFL. Teams are looking to shape up their rosters for a potential playoff run. Teams are looking to fill their holes, fill their gaps in their roster. But I did not expect the Jaguars to make a move for a running back. They have Leonard Fournette. They have TJ Yeldon. They have two good backs there. I know they lost Corey Grant to an injury. He's out for the year. Leonard Fournette, though, banged up. So you have to question, how long is Leonard Fournette going to be out? And then the second thing is, TJ Yeldon also injured. Don't know how long he's going to be out. So the Jacksonville Jaguars get on the phone. They contact the Cleveland Browns. Maybe the Browns put out to some teams that Carlos Hyde was potentially on the block. I don't think so, though. I think this was more of a case of the Jaguars approaching the Browns, seeing if Carlos Hyde was available, and then going out there and making the move. Now, I'm going to discuss this trade from both point of views, the Jaguars' point of view and the Cleveland Browns' point of view. But a third point of view would be the fantasy impact and implications of this draft or of this trade. So leave your comments in the live comment section. Let me know what you guys think. If you're watching this after the fact, leave a like, hit the comments after. Let me know what you think of this trade. Who do you think won the trade? Do you think it's a good trade for the Browns to get rid of Carlos Hyde and look to the future and Nick Chubb as their primary back? Or do you think it was a good trade for the Jaguars to get a veteran running back in there to help replace what they've currently lost and to help add some depth to the position? So from my point of view, let's start off with why the Jaguars made this trade. So the Jaguars made this trade, as I already brought up. Leonard Fournette is injured. He's banged up. He has not played for a number of weeks, and it seems like the Jaguars will be without Leonard Fournette for a long stretch of time. Now, he has been questionable for the last couple of weeks, but because you can pretty much infer that because the Jaguars and why they made this trade is obviously Leonard Fournette is out longer than they expected. And they know, the Jaguars know, they cannot get to the playoffs. They cannot succeed as a team this season without a strong running game, without a go-to running back. And obviously, whether TJ Yeldon is out for long-term or not, he's not necessarily the solution to a week-in, week-out starter and go-to guy at the position. He's a solid back. He's not terrible, but he's more suited as a backup. And they really need at least 2 to 3 guys in their backfield to get this thing done. And really, they haven't had the depth for a number of weeks now since losing Grant, not having Fournette. It significantly hurt their offense. I've been questioning the value of Leonard Fournette. How valuable has Leonard Fournette really been to the Jaguars? Because he's been basically their one go-to weapon on their offense. They don't really have anyone else you have to pay attention to, you have to game plan for. And without Leonard Fournette, this team has significantly struggled on the offensive side of the ball because they already have a lackluster, terrible quarterback in Blake Bortles. So now with Carlos Hyde, at least you bring back a little bit more of a dimension to your running attack. With Carlos Hyde, he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. And then you have as well TJ Yeldon hopefully getting healthier. And you can then afford to wait on Leonard Fournette. Make sure he's fully healthy. He is a long-term investment, so you can wait on Leonard Fournette and allow him to come back into the lineup when he sees fit, when he's fully ready, when he's ready to go, when he's healthy. So from that point of view, it was a 5th-round pick for Carlos Hyde. I think this is a solid trade for the Jaguars. Yes, it does seem like a little bit of a panic move. It does seem like they hit the red button, but when you look at it and you really think about it, the Jaguars are not making the playoffs without a strong rushing attack. And if Leonard Fournette is out for a long period of time, then Carlos Hyde was the right move. Because you have to think about the financial situation with the team right now. Their defense is really their core of their team. It's the reason why they made the AFC Championship last year. And a lot of money is invested in their defense right now. The Jaguars feel like they can win right now. I know that early in this season, they haven't exactly been the greatest team ever, and they just got shellacked by the Cowboys. But I personally feel that the Jaguars are still a very talented football team. And if they can turn some things around in scheme on defense and rely a little bit more on their talent and to play a little bit more man-to-man and to do a little bit different things on the defensive side of the ball instead of their same cover 3 concepts, their defense could get significantly better. It could get better to the point that it was last year because they still have the talent. They have maybe even arguably more talent than they had last year. So if they can get their defense back and in form, and Carlos Hyde is a decent enough replacement, then you're talking about a contender in the AFC. And there's not many wild card sort of teams like the Jaguars out there in the NFL right now that if everything falls into place, they can compete and they can win a Super Bowl. Now, I know it's hard to do with Blake Bortles, but they were set up last year to do that. And if Carlos Hyde can come in and help replace Leonard Fournette for a period of time, for a long stretch of time, arguably, maybe Leonard Fournette is out for the year. We don't even know the situation. But I just feel like they needed the depth because their running back position has been the primary focus of their offense, whether it's in the passing game, in the running game. Corey Grant was a huge part of this offense in the passing game. And without him, they've significantly missed that part of their offense. And now, hopefully, with a combination of Hyde and Yeldon, they can start to get back to what they were before on that side of the ball. And they can implement the same sort of game plan. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, why the Jaguars did this. And from the Browns' point of view, I think they basically did this saying, hey, I think the number one thing, a lot of people are going to point to Nick Chubb being the biggest reason why this happened. In my opinion, the biggest reason this happened was to get Duke Johnson on the field more. That's my opinion, actually. I think they realized that both of these guys, Chubb and Duke Johnson, are more efficient backs than Carlos Hyde. I think they realized that Duke Johnson, every time he touches the ball, he's efficient with it, whether it's in the passing game, the running game. He has a solid yards per carry. He makes guys miss. He's hard to handle in the passing game. He's a tough matchup. So we're going to put Duke Johnson out there. And really, if you look at it, as a Patriots fan, this is the way I see it. Sometimes 3 backs is a little bit too crowded. Like you saw the Patriots this year, Rex Burkhead went down, and then Sony Michel stepped up as that primary back, and James White was the primary pass catching back. And really across the NFL, when you really look at it, it's hard to put in 3 backs. It's hard to rotate 3 backs. And that was the issue with the Browns right now. They realized what they had in Nick Chubb. They signed Carlos Hyde in the offseason. I thought it was a solid signing. But then they drafted Nick Chubb because they liked the potential that they had at that spot. So through the first few weeks of the season, it was a growing process. It was a wait-and-see approach from the Browns to see what they had in Chubb. Now that they realize what they have in Nick Chubb as a running back, they believe he has the explosiveness and the gear to be a starting running back. Because remember, coming into the NFL, a lot of analysts did not believe that Nick Chubb could be a starting running back because he really didn't show enough explosiveness and he really wasn't great in the passing game. But because they have Duke Johnson and now they have Nick Chubb, they have 2 totally different type of running backs. They have now defined roles for each running back, and they don't have to mix in Carlos Hyde. Because Carlos Hyde was a guy that could do a little bit of both, but in my opinion, wasn't as great and as explosive as a runner as Chubb, and wasn't as great of a pass catcher as Duke Johnson. So now the Browns have a nice complement between both players, and they have defined roles for their running backs. There's no third guy in the mix. So in my opinion, that's why the Browns traded Carlos Hyde. Now, I'm not sure in the contract situation if this hurt the Browns in terms of money. Running back contracts usually aren't very big. I'm not one to be a salary cap analyst, so you'd probably have to go somewhere else. But that's my opinion on the football aspect and the team aspect of this deal. I think they just wanted to get Carlos Hyde out because they realized what they had in Chubb, and they realized Duke Johnson wasn't touching the ball enough. So that was the main reason. And for the Jaguars, they realized they need depth at that position. Leonard Fournette is injured, maybe long-term, and that's going to significantly hurt their chances to get to the playoffs, which a team really needs to get to the playoffs this year. If you think about it, the Jaguars are a team built for the next few years. They really need to maximize that. And by getting Carlos Hyde, they're trying to maximize that opportunity. So that's my opinion on sort of both situations from the team aspect. Now, switching over to the fantasy football aspect of it, obviously, if you drafted Nick Chubb and hopefully you held on to him to this point, I think he's going to become a solid number 2 back for you on your fantasy football team, depending on your situation. But to me, he's a top 24 back now in fantasy football. He showed a lot with limited touches. Hopefully that doesn't hurt his per carry basis or like his production from a per play basis. It probably will, because he's going to be handling the ball more. He's going to have to deal with stamina and just the overall toughness in terms of the game and going through a whole game process. But for me, Nick Chubb now becomes a startable fantasy running back. Before, he was kind of a guess. Maybe he was a flex maybe he was a flex if you had a poor team, or maybe he was a bye week fill-in. But now he becomes a number 2 fantasy running back for your team. I think Duke Johnson becomes a flex option for your team. I think a lot of it with the Browns has been, you really look at their receiver core for the Browns, not been very good. Even Jarvis Landry has been struggling this year. Callaway hasn't really worked out the way they wanted to, and Higgins has been super inconsistent. Since getting rid of Josh Gordon, this receiver core has really not been very good. So overall, you look at it, and Jarvis Landry is going to be the number 1 in the passing game. Does Duke Johnson become the number 2? So you could see Duke Johnson really become a flex option, maybe even a running back 2 in some PPR leagues. We'll have to wait and see, but I think both of those guys have good value for your fantasy team. Just like I said with the Patriots, once Michelle got his role defined, once White got his role defined, both players became very fantasy relevant. And I think we could see that same thing in Cleveland, maybe not to the same degree, but I think it could be still great for your fantasy teams if you own either guy. So I think that's a positive if you own either guy. Now, as for the Jaguars and Carlos Hyde, I think a lot of his value does depend on TJ Yeldon and his health and Leonard Fournette's health. Now, obviously, it seems like Leonard Fournette is going to be injured for a while. I'm trying to see. I don't really see any injury news on Leonard Fournette. I'm trying to see as much as I can here on Twitter from Adam Schefter and the reliable people. Fournette's injury could be worse, but we don't really know. So it's a tough question to answer. For TJ Yeldon, I think it's going to be, it's tough to say whether they would favor Hyde or Yeldon. Obviously, Yeldon has the advantage because he's been in the scheme and he's been in the offense and he knows the offense better. But usually running back is the one position where you can just plug a player in and you can just use them. You only need to know a few running plays here and there and the basic pass blocking schemes, and you should be able to go as a running back. It's not like being a receiver and coming in mid-season and having to work through an entire playbook of route combinations and the way the quarterback is and dealing with all that. As a running back, you get the ball and you go. And for Carlos Hyde, I do think he is a better back than TJ Yeldon, and I think they wouldn't make this trade for a 5th-round pick if they didn't believe he would come in and be the impact player and be the go-to guy. So for me, I would hold on to Hyde. I would not trade him. I would not panic. I think you could possibly go out there and trade for Hyde for relatively cheap and get him at a good price, because I think that Hyde could be a nice asset for you. I'm not going to say he's going to be like an upper echelon guy. I think we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be very tough to call at the moment. But I think Hyde right now could be at least a flex option. And you could possibly get him for cheap because people will be panicking to the fact that the Jaguars running back situation is crowded and very questionable because people don't really know what's happening with it. It could allow him to be a lot more available to a lot of owners that are confused and don't really know the situation. So that's kind of my analysis on the fantasy situation. I think it's a lot brighter if you're a Browns fantasy running back owner. If you're a Jaguars owner of Yeldon, or it definitely decreases Yeldon's value the most. I think Hyde's value stays about the same. Maybe it's not great the first 2 weeks or so, but I think it will be fine as the season wears on, especially if Fournette is out for long term, which I'm guessing he is, because I don't see why the Jaguars would trade for Hyde if Fournette was not injured seriously. So that's my take on the trade. I'm going to head to the comment section, answer your questions. If you have any questions relating to the trade from a football standpoint, from the team standpoint, or from a fantasy standpoint, hit me up in the comment section. Guys, just a quick thing. I haven't really talked much about it, but we just started an Instagram. So if you guys want to go over there and follow us on Instagram, the Bottom Line View, follow us on Instagram over there. We'll basically be, shooting out some of the content we do, giving you live updates. We'll be posting NFL related content, doing live video on there, possibly fantasy. We'll do Q&A fantasy I could do on there on Sundays. We'll see what happens if it becomes popular enough where it warrants attention, but go out there, follow it. It's definitely worth your time to go follow that. Just a quick thing before we get into the comments. So Robot Guy says, "Sup, y'all? What's going on?" Robot Guy. Graham says, "What's up, new sub? Thanks for subscribing, Graham." Robot Guy says, "Was Hyde doing well?" Hyde was fine. The thing about Hyde was he wasn't as explosive as Chubb, and he wasn't breaking as big of plays as Chubb. And I feel like, and then also he doesn't give the value that Duke Johnson gives in the passing game. So overall, it was just the odd man out. So to me, I'm not trying to say Hyde is not a talented back, because I believe he can serve a purpose and play well for the Jaguars. But to me, it's just the Browns saw him as the odd man out, and they can give more opportunity to a running back that costs them less in Nick Chubb and a player that's very explosive in Duke Johnson. That's kind of what I was seeing from it. Hayden says, "Mitch, remember me?" Yes, I remember you, Hayden. Thank you for liking the video. Chubb or Duke Johnson in a PPR league? I think right now, man, it's tough because Duke Johnson has that for sure role. This again is like the Michelle White. Like, this is the most comparable thing you could go with. Like, Duke Johnson is like James White and Chubb is like Sony Michel. So in that regard, I feel like Chubb would be more valuable even in a PPR league, but I think it's really close. Like, week in, week out, I think one guy will have a bigger week this week. One guy will have a better week the other week. I think Duke Johnson is safer and has a better floor, but I think Chubb is more explosive, has a bigger ceiling. So hopefully that answers your question. Yep, Chubb would have been a great pickup. Robot Guy says, "This seems smart to me for the Jags." I would agree. I think a lot of people are going to look at this as a panic move, but to me, this is a move that's trying to maximize the window of the team, so I like it. Ultra says, "Fournette is injury prone and is a lot like Devontae Freeman in his play style. Carlos Hyde is a good pickup and will help. Interested to see how Hyde fits in the scheme of the Jags." I think Hyde will actually be better in the Jacksonville scheme, because I think the offensive line overall, it's a very powerful offensive line. It's not the greatest, but like in the run game, they're so powerful, and I think it just suits the way that they want to play. Hyde is a guy that can take 20 to 25 touches. He's a traditional bell cow sort of running back, and in that role as the Jaguars guy, like what they use for Fournette, I feel like he could be very effective in that role. And do a lot of the things that Fournette can do. Maybe not as well, but can still do those things. And we'll have to see, but I think overall it was just a lot to deal with the three running backs for the Browns. And as maybe in a split scenario with TJ Yeldon, I think he'll be more effective. Zahir says, good trade for both teams. Go pick him up. Chubb is a league winner. Andrew says, same question. I just seen Chubb or Duke Johnson. All right, I answered that. Who will start in Cleveland? I think if you're looking at the traditional start, it would be Nick Chubb. But the starting, like in the NFL today, unless your name is Zeke or Gurley or somebody like that, or Saquon, you're not really a starter. You're kind of more of a role player. And to me, Chubb is the first and second down running back, the power running back, the goal line running back. And Duke Johnson is the pass catcher, the change of pace, and the backup in terms of first and second down carries. And I think it's also a game plan thing as well. Maybe if the Browns want to attack a defense more through the air, they'll use Duke Johnson. Maybe if they want to ground and pound, they'll use Nick Chubb. I think unless you're Zeke, unless you're Gurley, unless you're Gordon, even Gordon to a certain degree, Eckler has a role. You're a role player as a running back. Yes, Chubb is a better runner. Johnson's a better all-around back, says Ultra. I don't know about that. I think probably Chubb isn't really a pass catcher. So I think if you're a Johnson owner, you don't really have to deal or worry about Chubb stealing away catches from Johnson the way that you had to worry about Hyde stealing catches from Johnson. Because Hyde could catch the ball coming in. He caught the ball in San Francisco, and he caught the ball in Cleveland. Not a lot. But you don't really have to deal with that as much with Nick Chubb unless it's like a screen pass or the occasional pass, a dump off, something like that. Yeah, Fournette looks like he's completely out. Rojo says, I have Carlos Hyde playing. My opponent is playing Yeldon this weekend. Should I bench Hyde now? How do you see this playing out? I would say, who else do you have on your team? I think that's a crucial question. That's tough because, yeah, it would seem like Yeldon would get more carries, but maybe Yeldon's out for this week. Maybe they needed a running back right now to play. So I think you got to wait on that and see what the Jaguars say, but also who else is on your team. Good pickup, Andrew. Everybody's excited because they're picking up Chubb. Nick says, is Chubb still the back to roster in PPR to prevent opponents from hurting me the most? Are you talking about Chubb or Duke Johnson? Because I already talked about that, so you would have got the answer. But I know that you commented before. Thanks, Ghost. I'm glad you appreciate the new logo. Does Hyde's value decrease? I think I discussed this as well. I don't know yet, but I don't think so. I think it maybe even goes up. We'll have to see. Alex says, I don't believe this is necessarily a bad thing for Hyde owners. I would agree with you, Alex. Brian says, still roster Royce Freeman, Will Fuller, or Corey Davis. Oh, so you're talking about who you should drop? I would probably drop. Is it a PPR league? I'm assuming. I know Royce Freeman played well yesterday. I don't even know if you can drop him now. Will Fuller or Corey Davis? Honestly, Corey Davis is in a terrible passing offense, so I would rather drop him over Fuller. But in my opinion, I'm never starting Royce Freeman. Like, I'm starting Lindsey. I'm never starting Freeman. I have never started him this entire year. I have had no reason to. I don't think the Broncos are a good enough team to warrant starting two running backs. I know their rushing attack is pretty strong, but honestly, I would go with Freeman, especially if you're picking up Chubb. I would probably drop Freeman. But Davis would be the second on that list. It just depends on what position is stronger for you and what you can afford on your team. Yeah, guys, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to build our subscription base up, get us to 5,600. That would be much appreciated. We do NFL reactions, NFL recaps, live streams, fantasy videos. So if you're interested in anything NFL, guys, and you like what you're hearing from me, and you like me, maybe, I don't know, even if you don't, subscribe to the channel. Ultra says, was thinking of getting Nick Chubb, but my running backs right now are Barkley, Cohen, Mark Ingram, and James Conner. If Chubb or Johnson are in my league and Bell comes back, I'll get one of them. Yeah, I would agree. Nick says, I'm stacked at running back too. I had to drop Eckler for Chubb. I would do that though. I like Eckler, but I think dropping him for Chubb is the right move. It's dumber to let someone else start Chubb against me and beat me than risk Melvin Gordon getting injured. That's true. I would agree. Sometimes the best fantasy move is to screw your opponent, which is sort of what Nick's saying. Sometimes the best fantasy move is to pick up that defense that week, even though you might have a defense, because your opponent doesn't have a defense or has a shitty defense. So maybe you pick up that defense, or maybe you go out and pick Nick Chubb up because you know that this team that's competing with you doesn't really have a great running back core on their fantasy team, and maybe you need to pick that running back up just to screw your opponent. You know, sometimes that's the best move in fantasy. Defense is sometimes a good offense in fantasy. Why do the Browns bother to trade for picks? That stupid franchise just draft busts. That's an interesting take. I just think they were looking to get rid of Hyde just because of Chubb and Duke Johnson. I don't think this really had to do much with the value of him. I think this more was about what they realized they had in both the other running backs, and from efficiency standpoint and an offensive standpoint, they realized this is what was best for their team. Nick says, great content, man. You're super fun to chill with, and you're knowledgeable and don't have an annoying voice. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Party said, just kidding, but I hope we have a chance. Are you talking about the Colts? You talking about your Colts again, Party? What do you think about the Le'Veon Bell, James Conner situation? Bro, I've been in this situation for the past week. So let me put this out there for you guys. A little story time with Mitch right now. So I'm in a big money fantasy league, like a big money fantasy league. And we were looking to do a trade. Let me know what you guys think of this. I'm not going to do it right now. I might. Okay. So the trade is Odell and Sony Michel, who I own, for Le'Veon, James Conner, and Keenan Allen. Basically, and also we have to trade Ito Smith as well, but who cares? So it was Ito Smith, Odell, and Michel for Conner, Bell, and Allen. My problem with this is I have no idea, to your question, Ultra, what is going on in Pittsburgh. I think Le'Veon Bell is going to come back in a week or two, but don't count on me for that. I'm not Adam Schefter. I can just give you my best guess. A 5th-round pick is not low for a running back. Even Carlos, I mean, the best running back in the NFL would probably go, like Saquon Barkley would probably go for a 1st-round pick. Besides Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley might go for a 2nd. Maybe, Bell might go for a 3rd. Zeke might go for a 2nd. Like, only one running back in the entire NFL, Saquon Barkley, would go for a 1st-round pick. So just put that into perspective. When you compare the other running backs, like where is Carlos Hyde compared to Saquon? He's probably in the 5th round. And that also has to deal with contract, because you have to deal with Carlos Hyde's contract, which isn't exactly cheap. So it makes sense to me. I would say Chubb in a standard league. Should we pick up one of the Raiders running backs? Sure. I would say Rashard would be the one. Maybe Doug Martin. I wouldn't count on anything spectacular, though. I would think it would be a pretty much a share splitting time between him and Martin and whoever else they have there, because the Raiders' offense right now has been piss poor. Like, it's been bad, and Lynch has been the primary ball carrier. So I would say that the other three or whatever guys they have are probably just going to split carries. And I could see Doug Martin probably being the biggest beneficiary of it, but I don't see it being like great. So, I mean, if you're desperate and you're in a deep league, then sure. But overall, I don't see it being very good for you. I think I missed a couple questions. What do you think? Will this trade impact the game Sunday? I would say yes. I think he'll be in the lineup on Sunday for the Jaguars. Jack said Chubb or Yeldon start. Jaguars are playing the Texans. The Browns are playing the Bucks. I would go with Chubb. Jordan says Juju Smith or Michael Crabtree. Easy answer. Juju Smith-Schuster. Yeah, the Pens won last night against the Leafs. Screw the Leafs. Should I drop Adrian Peterson for Chubb? Why would you drop Adrian Peterson? Do you have anyone else to drop? That's tough. Hoodie says, you might have talked about this already, but what should I do with Leonard Fournette? Wait and see. If he goes on IR, drop him. But other than that, I mean, you have to just wait and see. I can't give you any other advice, because if I told you to drop him and he's not injured long-term, then I'd look like an idiot. So just wait and see. Vincent says, I dropped Dion Lewis for Duke. Good move. I would say yeah. Party says maybe. Alex says, hell yes, definitely. Connor and Allen are better than Odell and Michelle in fantasy, but I'm not sure, bro. But Odell, I think, is going to turn it around. Like, Odell's been better than Allen so far this year. Allen's been kind of average, to be honest. And Michelle, I think, is just turning it on. So, like, my kind of contemplation is I don't want to deal with the Steelers' backfield. And then the second thing is I don't want to – I think that Odell is going to start, like, is going to go off pretty quickly. He has 3 100-yard games in 5 games. And I think he's going to play better. But Allen, I think, is going to play better as well. But Michelle is just starting to get going. Like, I feel like Michelle could be a top 12 back in fantasy. So I think it's a really close trade. But I don't know. Maybe if we get enough, if we get enough votes, then I'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot of money. Nick says, I like that trade because Keenan and Odell are similar, unfortunately for OBJ owners. And it's okay that you don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh as long as you have both. I guess that's true. Nick says Michelle is great, but no reception, so the Pittsburgh running backs have more upside. I would agree with that as well. Matthew says, what's Yeldon's value after Carlos Hyde's trade? I think right now he's probably a flex play. Before he was looked at as a running back 2, maybe even a running back 1. I think he's a flex right now. Eddie says, should I start Hyde this week? I actually think Hyde, to go back to that question, Eddie, I think that actually Hyde could end up, or Matthew, I think Hyde could end up even taking the role away from Yeldon. But right now, I think you have to say he's like a flex. Eddie says, should I start Hyde this week? Still, my other options are Smallwood, Burton, and Cam Meredith. I would contemplate between Smallwood. I would have to see. I would probably start Smallwood. Yeah, I would go Smallwood. Bly, I'm gonna call you Bly, says Devin Funchess or Ridley. Is Ridley playing this week? Has he practiced? I think that's a question because he's questionable. And the question is, Ridley is on Monday Night Football. So if we don't know if he's a game time decision, I would say Funchess. And I think Funchess will have a decent game. Marshawn Lynch is out for approximately a month. Dropping Hyde, should I pick up Chubb or carry on Johnson? I love both. Is that a good answer? No. Jeez. I love Kerryon Johnson, so I might be really biased. Honestly, I would say Kerryon Johnson. I think Kerryon Johnson's going to have a huge season at the end of the season. I think he's really going to break out. Duke Johnson's value affected. He goes up. Thinking of dropping Amari for Jared Cook. I would not mind that at all. Eric Rowe is not the issue. Heard Fournette is just a big ass baby who isn't that hurt. Oh, maybe. Higher upset this week. Full PPR. Curse, Coleman, or Will Fuller. Curse is playing the Vikings. So I would cancel out Curse. Coleman or Fuller. I would say Coleman. Half PPR, Howard or Chubb. I would say Chubb right now, actually. I don't like what they're doing with Howard right now. You got to keep Sony Entertainment, Mitch? All right, robot. Should I start panicking and trade? If you could get, I think you honestly missed the opportunity to trade Connor, but if you could still get good value from Connor, I'd consider trading him. Hyde, I don't think you're going to get enough value if you trade him, so I would consider keeping him. I'm 5-1 in the league, so I'm not desperate. Will Duke Johnson's value be affected? Yes. I've said that like 4 times. I'm sorry, guys, if you're coming in late, but I've said Duke Johnson's going up. He's going up. I think you could see Duke Johnson not quite as good as James White, but in that area, James White-ish. Took a huge L from trading James Conner and Adrian Peterson for Leonard Fournette and Stephon Diggs. On paper, that looks good, bro. Like when Fournette is playing, but obviously he's not. So just hope for the best with Stephon Diggs. Should the Browns pick up a receiver and who? I don't know who's really out there. I honestly give Dez a shot. Give him a shot. Why not? I think it would actually do well. I think him and Mayfield would be actually a good thing for the team. I don't know. I don't think Dez is great or anything, but he's probably better than most of the things out there right now. I think the Browns should consider trading for a receiver more so than actually Rashard Matthews isn't a bad option either. He's another guy out there too. Those are the 2 guys I know that are really out there. Other than that, I don't really know who else is out there. Frank Gore, Duke Johnson, Carlos Hyde. Which 2 should I start? Duke Johnson and he plays Detroit. I would wait and see on the other one if Hyde's going to play. For Frank Gore's safer. But Duke Johnson for sure. Frank Gore is safer. I think Hyde has a bigger upside. But Gore's been getting a lot of touches lately, so you might want to go with Gore. So who do you pick up, Johnson or Chubb? I would go Chubb. Should I start Kerryon Johnson or TJ Yeldon? Kerryon Johnson. Chris, we think still Chubb slightly, but Duke gonna be a lot better than he's been. I agree. I'm lost. I have Duke Johnson and Hyde. What do I do? Duke Johnson's more valuable at this moment in time, but Carlos Hyde could become valuable. I would keep Hyde. I would keep both. Johnson became more valuable, and Hyde is wait and see. And because he's wait and see, he doesn't have a lot of value in trading, so you can't trade him. I traded Joe Mixon for Marshawn Lynch. Why? Do we still start Hyde as a Jaguar? Again, Wait and see. I know it's crazy. I have my start and sits coming out tonight, so wait and see. Chubb over Coleman. Wentz or Cousins? Cousins. That's tough though. Brian says better back going forward, Chubb or Hyde. I would say Chubb. Mr. Wong says, thanks, Mitch, for the vote of confidence to drop Amari Cooper. No problem. Hoodie says, just subbed. Glad I found your channel. Before I have to get off the live stream, Diggs or Josh Gordon? I would say Diggs is safer. Josh Gordon is starting to get into that role, though. I really like what I've seen so far. But he is playing the Bears as opposed to the Jets, so I would go with Diggs. And I think Diggs just had a bad week last week. Macaroni and cheese or mashed potatoes? I would go macaroni and cheese. Jags or Ravens defense this week? This week, I might go Jaguars. There because I feel like they could get a lot of pressure on Watson this week. So, and if the Jaguars start to turn it around, then you're going to get a big play. Jeremy says, Chris Carson is on my wire. Is he worth the pickup over Ito? I would say yeah. It's close. I would say yeah. Should I try to get Fournette if I have Hyde? If you can get him for dirt cheap, sure. But wait till if he goes on IR or not. Funchess or Watkins? Funchess, I think. I don't know, though. You never know with the Kansas City guys. Funchess is going to be more consistent. If you want a higher ceiling, go Watkins. If you want a safer guy, go Funchess. I would probably go Funchess in my lineup. Should I? What else? Picked up Chubb. What kind of trade does he hold? PPR format. What kind of trade? Like, are you looking for specific players? I think he holds a starting running back in your fantasy lineup value. DC or Marvel? I'm sure you looked at my Justice League. Okay. This is how I answer the question. I love both. Okay. My two favorite superheroes, Batman, Spider-Man. Marvel has been more consistent in the movie aspect. Very, very good movies. DC is better at everything else, in my opinion. Better at video games, better at comics, better at TV shows, better at animation, better at basically everything except movies. But Marvel they just dropped that Spider-Man game, so that's something. They got Daredevil's coming back out, so that's big. So, I mean, Marvel, I think, is hot right now, which I have to lean Marvel right now. But I would say I'm slightly more of a fan of DC. But I think Marvel is doing better right now, obviously, because of their movies. Jeremy says start Mac or Eckler. I would say Mac. What do you think, Cam or Dalton? Bro, I think Cam. I would say Dalton. My life as Mr. says, should I trade Connor? I have a bunch of running backs. I would see what you can get for Connor. Is Sanu hurt? Yeah, Sanu is a game time decision apparently for Monday, but you have to check on that. I'll stick around until 4:30 Eastern time. So 4 more minutes to answer your guys' questions, and then I'll be out. As you guys are asking those questions, I'll be plugging stuff. So if you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. The Bottom Line View. NFL content only. Exclusive. All right? NFL news like this. Breaking videos of trades. We have live reaction videos on Sundays. We're reacting to the Saints and the Ravens this weekend. The Panthers and the Eagles. So we'll be talking about the game, giving you commentary, reacting, having a good time. We also do fantasy start and sit 'em. That's what I do. We do picks every week. The subscribers on the channel know that this is a good channel. Do you guys want to give us a plug in the comments to the new people in the chat? then you can. But definitely consider subscribing as well. Hit the like button if you haven't. Just show support. And then also follow us on Instagram. We're new to Instagram. We just got up there like 2 days ago. The Bottom Line View on Instagram. Follow us. Same logo, same name. Follow us there. Also on Twitter, you'll find our Twitters below in the description. I'm Mitch Milani. You can follow me on Twitter at Mitch Milani. You can also follow our channel Twitter to keep up to date with the channel. Bottom Line View. Okay, it's in the description. If you want to follow me, I personally think there's value to following me because I tweet a lot about football. Like I tweet 90% of my tweets are about football and in the NFL and the channel. So if you want to follow me there, you can follow me there. Okay. Let's get to a last couple questions. Chris says, pick up Richards or Martin. Oh God, you're killing me with these Raiders running back questions. Jeez. Can I say neither? If I had to pick one, I would say Martin, I guess. Brian says I'm down 33 points and it's only Friday. Should I kill myself? I would consider it, Brian. No, I'm just kidding. Don't kill yourself ever. I don't see that as a solution. I'm just joking. Dame says, seeing as Kamara didn't play as much last week, Kamara over Ingram. Kamara. Shane says, White, Collins, or Boyd? Non-PPR flex. Collins? Not decisively though, because both other guys are really good. That's a really good situation. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. Actually, Collins plays the Saints run defense. That's tough. Geez. But it's non-PPR. White has been playing really well. You know what? Go with White. I'm going to go with my Patriot because I think that the Patriots are going to attack the linebackers of the Bears, and I think James White will be a big part of that. So I would go James White. Switch my answer on that one. Sorry. Jeremy says, Duke Johnson is on my wire. Should I pick him up and start him over Mac? Ooh, that's tough. I like Mac this week. I actually think he's going to have a good week. But if you can afford to pick up Duke Johnson, pick him up as well. Brian says, just got a trade offer, Gronk and Breida for AB. What other receivers do you have? I would probably say no, but it depends on what other receivers you have and what running backs you have. My life as Mr. says, what kind of wide receiver should I expect to try to get for trading Connor? Okay. Let's go through, shall we? You could get, now it's tough because we don't know if Le'Veon Bell is coming back or not. So it's really up to you if you're willing to take the gamble on whether or not Le'Veon Bell is coming back. If you think he's not coming back, I wouldn't trade him. If you think he's coming back, I would consider trading him for the following receivers: Devontae Adams, Alshon Jeffrey, Emmanuel Sanders, who else? Diggs or Thielen, of course. Hill. Any of the receivers I'm naming, I think you could get for him. Or you would trade for him, I should say. Maybe Brandon Cooks, Odell, AJ Green, Michael Thomas, Julio, maybe Keenan Allen, Hopkins, Evans. That's pretty much it. I think if you can't get one of those players, I wouldn't trade him. And the thing is, I don't really know. I don't trust me on whether, I don't know if Bell's coming back in the next couple of weeks or not. So I can't definitively answer that question. That's my trouble and what I'm personally having in my fantasy trades right now. Tree Cohen or Matt Breida? I would say Cohen this week, but I like Breida over the course of the season more. Brian says, I have Julio, Gordon, Fuller, Goodwin, running backs, Mixon, AP, Chubb, Carson. What is your... Oh, okay. Julio. You have Julio and Antonio Brown? And who's your tight end, Brian? Because this offer is Gronk. It doesn't seem like you would need Breida. So just in that alone, I would probably say no. But if you're really desperate at tight end, oh, you have Jimmy Graham. No, I'd say no. I wouldn't do that trade. Jimmy Graham's not the greatest, but he's not the worst either. Chris says, who will be the wide receiver 2 for the Saints now that Ginn is in on IR? Smith played really well last week. I think Traquan Smith has an opportunity to be that, but Cameron Meredith also has an opportunity. But if I had to lean towards one, I would say Smith. All right, guys, that will be the last question. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, should you give up on Cooper? Yes. If you enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell if you want to stay up to date with the channel, and make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram, The Bottom Line View. All right, guys, it's Mitch of The Bottom Line View. See you next time. Peace out.